Councillor Rigby, who's been substituted by Councillor Arnold tonight. I'll take you through the report.
Thank you very much.
Cabinet adopted our single-use plastic policy around this time last year, February 22, and we felt the need to implement a framework to make sure that the council were acting to that policy. We've come up with two options to implement the policy, and what we wanted to do was balance them between kind of the effort that it was taken and the rewards for both options, to make sure that we were putting the right amount of effort in to achieve the same aims. So the first option was to implement a whole framework where we got everybody who runs a contract to review all their contracts, speak to their contractors to see if there was different ways in which they could use any single-use plastics that were involved. We'd need quite a lot of governance to do that. It would take a strong project management, or a strong project team, and a plan as well to implement. And we were unsure whether the benefits that we would receive from that would be worth the time that we would get. So our option 2, which is our preferred option, is that we would implement a process through our procurement to make sure that when we are procuring anything new, that we're considering all alternatives to single-use plastics, and that includes anything to do with any products, but also anything to do with any events that we might hold, any public events, or if we are hiring out something for a public event, what we're asking the event holders to do, so that we're making sure that they are considering single-use plastics, so we're making sure that follows through. We will also be asking, as part of the course, that contract managers with current contracts are looking at their contracts and are considering single-use plastics, but doing that with less governance from a kind of project team, in that they will have to do that as part of their course of their roles. So we are asking for permission to go with option 2, so that we can implement this process via our procurement teams. Any questions? Any clarifications? Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a couple. It's got on 3.21 that the approach would require suitable project governance across Thurrock to ensure the assurances are delivered against. Does that account for everything that's in the council, including the cafe downstairs?
Yes.
Is that something we're going to look at them as well?
Yeah, so it's a council-wide policy, so it looks at every area that we're looking at, that we deal with. So it includes the cafes downstairs, anything external, so Grays Beach or anything like that we've got areas of canteens or anything like that. We would have to look at all of that.
So that accounts for external people that are coming in to bringing stuff into the council. So that may be awkward, mightn't it? If we've got to go with manufacturers that are manufacturing for the people that are delivering to us, that when it starts to go out to the manufacturers and shops and stores, because we're not going to get to them. No. We've not got a lot of, a way to go. It doesn't give us a clear steer.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to look at proper contract change processes that should already be written within our contracts. You're right that the chain goes on and on. I mean, for example, we have just procured a new uniform contract for our street services crews, And within that contract, we wrote in that we did not want any of the uniform delivered in single-use plastics. And that included, when they got delivered the items, before it even touched us, we didn't want them to be just taking it out and then throwing it away. We wanted the whole supply chain void of single-use plastics. So, I mean, that's an example of a very recent contract, and obviously won't be in place for some of the older contracts. But that's the kind of view that we're now looking at, is we don't just want it gone at the point where it gets to us. We don't want it in the first place anywhere along the supply chain.
Isn't some of the plastic recyclable anyway? I mean, it comes through on bottles and plastic bottles we use in the home. It comes through that this can be recycled, so we automatically stick it in the recycling bin if it says that, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. And recycling is 100% better than disposing, but waste reduction is even better than recycling, and there's less carbon footprint in everything. So in production, in handling, in transport, and in the disposal function as well. So if we can eliminate it from I won't say everything because that's going to be very difficult, but from a lot of what we do, then we'll be able to reduce our carbon footprint greatly.
I think as long as we're doing our best,
yeah, absolutely.
That's the main thing. If we're not seen to be doing, then that's no good.
Yeah, and there's some areas that we won't be able to do. For example, medical reasons. There's often plastic straws are still allowed for medical reasons. So there's things like that we certainly won't be able to change.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne.
Yeah, first thing you said, reward. Reward is saving the planet. There's just a no-brainer. So there's no reward. There's no ifs or buts. So you're talking about rewards. Can you just scrub that? Because that's wrong on so many levels for me. You can't have a reward for not doing it or doing it. It's just save the planet, no question, no answers. The other thing, the last year, have we just forgot it and ignored it, or because it's supposed to be a year, and when they come in last meeting, there's plastic there, there's plastic on the table, so it just not happened for the last year.
No, I agree that the route for delivery is delayed. I do agree. It is part of our procurement process and was adopted as soon as the Cabinet was approved, so that has been written, but what we are trying to do is strengthen that process.
And just one other thing, does that go for print signs and things like that? Because I've had many an argument that your people tell me that there's no alternative, because I was 40 years in print, and they actually lie to you and say there's no alternative, and I've supplied them with alternatives to say that is the alternative, and they say we've investigated, we've done it, and they just lie to you. So you've got a lot of people that haven't got a clue about recycling of plastic or anything, so I think you need educate your people, because all they come out with you is lies basically. They sent out every house a recycle package, and they put it in a poly bag. And so what is that? That is people that, I said, whoever sent them out should be fired. Because you can't send out. Yeah, so it's just, I haven't seen it. I'd love to, and I can't wait to see it going forward, but the last 2 years, you've just paid lip service to it. So that's my opinion anyway. Thank you.
Councillor Arnold.
I do think Councillor Muldowney was a bit ahead of me, actually.
Okay, Councillor Muldowney.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Arnold. So I went and had a look at the decision that was made by Cabinet nearly a year ago, and that said that it was making the elimination of SUPs from our offices and working practices a strategic priority. So the thing that I'm not quite clear about is this a roll back from, it seemed a very clear that we were going to go ahead. In fact, I think we were assured that it had happened and there was no single-use plastics being used in the council at all, that we were completely free of that. Obviously, the last time we came in, there was plastic cups, so that's why it came up. So what is the difference between the decision that was made at Cabinet a year ago and what we're being shown now? Because that wasn't clear to me when I read both documents together. So is it a rollback on that commitment to getting rid of single-use plastics, or is it an enhancement of that?
It's a route to delivery, so it's not supposed to contradict the Cabinet decision. It's supposed to provide a route of how we get there.
So it's still a strategic priority?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got two options here. So what is the difference between the two options?
So the first option is looks at a solid project manager who is dedicated to providing this to delivering the Cabinet strategy. It will take. We did some calculations which I haven't got to hand, but I can provide, of the time that we would need, and we would need at kind of various different levels to deliver on that first option. And we looked at the kind of priorities of the council in terms of the current situation that we're all experiencing, and we looked at what the best use of the time was, and we looked at what we would have to do in terms of a procurement process, so that if we delivered it at a procurement level, we could deliver the same goals but with being less time intensive, is essentially what we looked at.
Right, okay. So I'm going to make a comment on that, because those calculations, that's what needs to go into the report. I mean, I don't know if you have taken over half, if this was written by somebody else, but I was a bit disappointed at the report because it's not really much of a report. But when we come to scrutinise these and we're asked to make a decision between options, we need to have some kind of data to give us an idea of what the different options mean. So, I mean, obviously I can take your word for the fact that you've done this work, although I hesitate to do that given historic events in other areas. I'm not meaning to cast any aspersions on you personally, but obviously, you know, governance hasn't been working very well at the council. So it's really difficult to scrutinise and make a decision about options as a member without that actual detail and that actual data. Okay, so you're basically looking at a different way to deliver it, so it's less time intensive, and I guess the costs of that are less as well. Yeah,
that's correct.
Can you follow up with the data that underlines that decision?
That's no problem. My apologies.
That would be good. So it's not a rollback on the commitment. Okay.
Whatever, can I just butt in there? Whatever option we go for, we'll get that added to it. We want the figures there.
Brilliant.
On the option, okay?
Are there any other differences between what you want to do in terms of the preferred option and what the detail of the decision that was made at Cabinet was?
No,
because there's not enough detail in the report for me to see that.
Okay, my apologies. I will get you some more data.
Okay. Thank you.
Susan, I know it's not perhaps in your remit, but the bottle that the water's in, is that plastic? So the container it comes in, we need to look at that too. So I don't know what else you'd put it in. If it was glass, it may get broken, so there'll be another health and safety there, which doesn't give you a lot of scope, you know, to change that.
Chair, if I just may clarify, the report is concerning the reduction or elimination of the use of single-use plastic. So they are your one-off cups, knives, forks, and that sort of thing. Clearly, containers like that are not single-use. They're being used again and again. So just to sort of be clear, this is trying to eliminate the throwaway kind of items.
Later, I mean, we will get somebody say something like that, though, so I thought we'd better to bring it up now. Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Susan. Yeah, just really a kind of a hypothetical question, really. It's a new topic for me. Obviously, you're going to be speaking to various people, organisations. I mean, for example, to go in a cafe down there could be anything really. Could be something council related. I mean, what happens if you're asking questions of the suppliers to maybe re-tender at that procurement stage, and they're all coming back in more expensive, and they simply can't get, you know, maybe the product line that they're in or whatever is kind of a dearer option to go down this route. How do we get around that? Have you considered that?
Yeah, I think we have to look at, again, through our contract change policies, and we would have to consider that, obviously, the financial implications. I mean, what we generally find is, and this is a general rule of thumb, obviously, it doesn't apply to everything, but when you take away the disposable items, particularly when they're unnecessary, actually the items become cheaper. So we generally find that, but we would have to look at individual cases if it increased costs. I mean, I think it's important to note as well that the Cabinet report is about avoidable plastics as well. So some things we may not be able to get rid of. You know, the medical straws is the classic example. There may be many more that that I haven't even thought of. So we need to consider that avoidable is the kind of key term here.
And really, just another thing that's just popped into my head is just, I mean, obviously we're looking. This has got a period of time before it can be. Maybe we're really established to get where we are. But along that journey, if you're asking, I'm just going to give an example. Say like the cafe down Grays Beach, but there's numerous places. I mean, how are you actually going to police this? I mean, have you sort of factored in how you can actually keep on top of people? And are you going to be having visits to these people where you can ask them to supply details of their product lines? I mean, how is on earth this is going to work?
I think we need to take a really pragmatic approach and approach it through contracts. We're not going to be able to send people down there to check. So we're going to just have to ensure a robust process through contracts. And that's one of the reasons why the procurement route is a really good way to do it, because we're making sure that that's considered at point of purchase. So it doesn't leave any room for ambiguity.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chakwa.
Thanks, Chair. I was just looking at the paragraph 326, where it says develop an approach for supporting schools and events. Can you explain that? How are you going to develop that approach? Thanks.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this refers to things like disposable cutlery, for example, and plates where they might use for events, which actually, since writing this, the government have stated they're going to ban these items anyway by the summer. So we've got some help with that, which is nice. But we plan on writing kind of support documents to help them make sensible decisions when, particularly schools, because a lot of schools are on board. We've had some really good engagement events with the schools where we've sent an education bus and an office. We've had some funding where we've sent an education person to talk about recycling and particularly single-use plastics. That was the key factor. So a lot of the schools are on board and interested in how they can reduce this further. So we're supporting them via areas like that. We can also, help them write kind of a procurement strategy so that they are able to make sensible decisions that might well mirror what we're doing. So, but obviously we might have to just tailor it slightly to what they're doing. And with regards to events on council lands, I think we would make that part of almost like a contract document. So if you're prepared to, if you want to use our land to do this, these are the things you need to adhere to make sure that you're environmentally sound, and single-use plastics will be one of them.
One more thing is that, do you still extend that kind of approach to business community in Thurrock?
So we're part of a partnership called Oceans Together, working with DP World and several other businesses in South Essex. And the whole premise of what we're doing is about single-use plastics. So we've been working together as almost like a sharing a good practice to show each other what each other are doing with regards to reducing the single-use plastics. If it's not avoidable, what we've been doing to recycle it. So DP World are a great example where they found a recycling outlet for wrapping around kind of pallets. And they shared that amongst the group, and now there are several people doing that. So we're doing that in terms of that forum.
Good evening, everyone. Just something quite simple, really, when you say about disposable plastics. What about pens? Will we be going over, are they chuckable or recyclable? Or will they be metal, you know? Because everyone uses pens, don't they, plastic? And they're plastic, aren't they? Will we be eventually going over to perhaps metal pens or something?
Bamboo.
Oh, that was it, thank you. I was just asking.
I honestly don't have the answer for kind of individual materials. The council policy and the cabinet adopted an overall strategy for single-use plastics. So we would definitely have to look into stationery and you know, where it is absolute single use and there is an alternative, we will definitely investigate that.
There's hundreds of them, isn't there? Schools as well. Everything opens a can of worms, doesn't it? Because you've got a metal pen and inside you've got a plastic holder holding the ink. So, you know, it gets a bit, it gets not silly, but it has a knock-on effect to everything. I think it's good that you're getting into the schools, because the schools, children take it home to mum and dad. And that's been shown to be true. They are going home and telling mum and dad that you've got to do that or you've got to do this. So that's a good thing. Councillor Watson and then Councillor Byrne.
That's the second time people have thought I was Lee this week. Okay. Yeah, so sort of I just wanted to say that I found it interesting what you were saying about the procurement process. So this is a means to deliver what has been, apparently has been a strategic priority for a year but hasn't really been acted on. So that sounds good. Are you confident that you can deliver it as a priority through the procurement process? I mean, it sounds as if that is probably a good place to put this policy, as that's at the beginning of everything. So, and I really liked what you were saying about a procurement process for the uniform that's coming through and making sure that there's no single-use plastics used in the whole of that supply chain. So that's fantastic that the council are using their influence like that through the procurement process. So from the research and the data that you've looked at, you're confident that it's the best. This is the best place to put the resources that we've got, because obviously we probably haven't got the resources now that we might have had in the past. And that's going to give us the most bang for our bucks, if you like, at the end of the day.
Yeah, so we will, well, it's already in there. So within our governance forms to procure, single-use plastics is already in there. What we intend to do is just make that process a little bit more robust. So at the moment it just says, have you considered? What we want to do is make sure that they've considered all options. So, for example, a lot of people just think that a single-use plastic might be a plastic bottle, whereas actually they don't consider the wrapping on a uniform or something like that. So we want to make sure that that is more robust and that they are able to consider all of the options. So I think what we will have through the procurement process is a method that they have to demonstrate both to the procurement team and to the officers signing this off that they have considered the single-use plastics policy when procuring. So it's auditable as well.
Have we got the capacity within the procurement team to actually do this piece of work alongside everything else that they're doing?
So everything over £25,000 has to go through, I mean, there's obviously new processes, but under the old process, everything under £25,000 had to go through the governance process anyway. So that hasn't changed. In fact, it's got more robust because obviously it's slightly lessened. So we can make sure that, well, it already is in part of that process.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand your reply. So we're already doing it. Oh, it's already part of that process. You're just adding extra bits in there, so it shouldn't have an impact on capacity. Right, okay, thanks. Thank you.
Here you're right, and we're going to employ someone else to oversee this, or are we? No? So would the facilities manager be somebody who would check on what's going on within the council? Would that be something like the plastic cups if they're not being used, or is that something that he can do going through his job during the day?
Turn that on. Where there is spend under that procurement process, we will have to engage with people like facilities. I mean, they'd be key, like you said, for the cups and for the canteens. But what we would rely on is the individual contract managers who manage their own contracts to be responsible for their own areas, rather than an overall governance on it.
Yes, well, I like what I hear so far, but what I don't like is not possible, because everything's possible, and there's no alternative. This is the thing I've had. If you're people like they come to me, and I know it's possible, but if they use other people that haven't been in plastics or recycling, and they say it's not possible, they believe them, then they carry on just doing what they're doing. So, actually, people, your procurement people, it starts from them. They've got to be trained up and know what they're buying, really. If their supplier says that's not possible, then they've got to go to another supplier, and then if it's not possible, maybe. But you can't just take somebody's word that that's possible, because they want money. And that's all they'll lie to you. It's like water companies. They don't sell water, do they? They sell plastic bowls. So it's a spin on everything, isn't it? So you've just got to make sure everybody's clued up and say, not possible is got to be off your agenda, and there's no alternatives got to be off your agenda, because there always is one. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just sitting here thinking, I really do not wish to put a negative kind of vibe on this, but I just can't get away from it. It's more, perhaps it's just more a comment and more of my opinion, really, but I struggle with the idea of procurement, people being awarded contracts, maybe well off site. It's the policing of it, and actually it's having the governing of this. I find I really don't see how that can be managed. Someone can, win a contract with. I mean, we keep coming back to water bottles. I'm going to supply water in this container, but as soon as the contract's awarded, 2 months down the line, if they're buying like tons of water from Costco's, who knows about it? And I really can't see how you're going to police it. I mean, it's really my opinion, really. I see trouble ahead and problems galore. Thank you.
If I just can comment on that point, if you make, as part of your supply chain, as part of going out to tender, a requirement that you do not want your goods wrapped in single-use plastic, or you do not want to be supplied goods in that format, then it will be down to the supplier to say how they're going to meet your needs. And it strikes me that is the most effective way forward, is to actually be very clear about what our requirements are, and then they have to demonstrate how they will meet those requirements. That's effectively what happened here with the example that was given with this kit that was ordered. We were very clear at the outset, this is how we want it to be supplied to us. And either they can meet that or they can't. And if they can't, they're not able to actually meet our requirements in terms of supply and the contract.
Yeah, I mean, really what I'm thinking is if something is in place, and there's maybe like a misdemeanour regarding the product. I mean, what if someone is found to be flouting the terms of their contract, for example? I mean, how do you police that? I mean, is there plans in place to prosecute people or withdraw the contract immediately? I just don't see how that's going to work.
So I'll give the example of the uniform contract again, because this was kind of the flagship contract that we were doing for this. Within the performance measures for the framework of performance for this contract, it was that 100% of the uniform was delivered with no single-use plastic. if it was delivered. So there's like a point system for non-conformities for the contract, and that was one of them. So if something gets delivered in single-use plastic, they accrue a point system, and the point system leads to either, I won't talk about the specifics of the contract, but generally for any contract could lead to either financial penalties or eventually could lead to a termination. So you can performance manage it via that framework.
Thank you, Chair. Going back to sort of the original strategy, I mean, obviously part of that was about encouraging staff and indeed members to reduce the amount of plastic that they're bringing in. Is there still going to be sort of an education programme? Because I think, as Councillor Byrne was saying, obviously he's had years of experience working in the industry, so he knows that there are a lot of alternatives. Is there still plans for educating council staff, and also maybe even a session for members? I think that would be really useful, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about how possible it is actually to, as well as really needed, to get rid of single-use plastics as much as possible.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to do an engagement and communications plan internally with staff. We hadn't considered doing something with members, but that's absolutely something we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's like everything, isn't it? If we're talking about bottles and things that are being sold in the stores, they all say recyclable. So it's how far we go, or how recyclable is that bottle, and do we actually get rid of it? Can we get rid of it? So I think it's something we have to look at as well. Some things, as you said, might not be able to be done. So we need to look at that. Councillor Byrne.
Simple. We can't get rid of plastics with us forever. Recycle. We still can't get. It might turn into another bottle, but that bottle is with us for life, forever. It never ever will go away. It will go in the little particles, and it goes in the sea, and dolphins eat it, but it is there, will never ever degrade. That is with us till the planet blows.
I can understand where you're coming from. I've just put, in my ward, I've just put 10 benches in, but they're all recyclable plastic. So they don't, like wooden, they don't go to nothing. No, and they don't need painting, and they'll last forever.
They're not single use, so that's
no,
good. That's fantastic.
That's good. If that's what I meant. If all our recycled stuff can go to make something, then that's a better fix to me. I didn't want to put wooden ones in, because I've put wooden ones in before, and they all, they deteriorate and they're not treated, and it's a bit like our bollards that we've got all over the borough. They just deteriorate and fall apart. So we need something that we can actually make these things into. Perhaps it's something we ought to try to do with manufacturers, to make them more. If we give them our plastic, they can make something with it and put it back in the borough. It's something that we perhaps can try to do. Okay.
Brilliant.
Thank you for that, Susan and Anita. Thank you. 1.1. You wanted something added, Councillor Muldaney. You wanted the figures. Are you happy with that? Yeah.
Also, I've just noticed that it's a report to note. I don't know why. Isn't it asking us to make a decision about? Isn't it asking us to? It says it's recommended that the Cleaner, Greener, Safer Overview and Scrutiny Committee note the content of the report. It's a report to note only. But there's options to decide on. There's nothing about that. I mean, maybe we should wait for the data and then, but I don't know in terms of governance, does this have to go back to Cabinet?
I don't believe it.
I mean, really, this should all be sorted out by the...
Sorry?
This kind of thing needs to be managed by the chair ahead of the meeting. I mean, we shouldn't be getting reports to know, and if we're being asked to make a decision between options, then there needs to be a recommendation that we can either agree or not agree on, surely.
I think
It's a recommendation, so, but we need to have perhaps a bit more meat on the bones.
Yes.
You know, and to make it a bit more meaty than it is. You know, we've had this through to us once before. It's come back again. So now we're not going to obviously see anything else now till June. Is that our next meeting, roughly? You know? So we're not going to see anything till June. So we hope that by the time you come back to us, we get those figures and we have a bit more meat on the bone. Yeah.
Again, my apologies. I'll get that out.
Does this need to be agreed tonight, though, in terms of implementation?
I guess it just it will just delay the rollout of it if we don't. But I guess what we could do is we could start with the procurement area, and then when this comes back in June, we could assess if it's successful and give you that data. I mean, I can get that data to you literally first thing tomorrow. So
we want to see that early.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
We wait till June, we're not going to see anything from it. So I think it's been back to us once, it comes back to again. That's what we're here for, to overview and scrutinise what you're doing. You know, so we're here to make sure it happens. You know, as we don't want to see plastic cups coming back in. You know, when somebody's, I don't know what happens to all the old ones that we've obviously ordered in, whether they go. But I think we need something a bit more meaty than we've got now. But I don't want to stop this carrying on, you know, for you doing the work that you're doing, because we need to see some strategy there. Anita?
Yeah, I just want to double check. I mean, you've got two options that were in there. What the report was asking was for members to agree the approach. Our recommended approach is the option 2, which is the procurement approach, which is what we've largely discussed, and that is what we will intend to progress. I just want to double check that in asking for something to come back in June, I just want to check you're not saying you don't want us to make progress on that option. No. Okay.
Yeah, so number one and two, the way I get it, one, in an ideal world, if we could afford it, we'd have a project manager, but you're doing it on cheap because of our situation. Yep. So two, we're going to suck it and see. So, but come June, if we're not developed, would we then get to a point where we say, well, we desperately need a project manager because we're failing? So with that, because I love the procurement way, because I've been procurement all my life. They do it, they make the rules, and if you get a load that comes in that's wrong, you just reject it. So that's been my world. So this is a good alternative because we've got no money and we're doing it on the cheap. So I think we've got no choice really.
I don't think we've got no money, but if we're going down this route, we need to. It's already in process, isn't it? It's already there, so we're just really carrying on. And I think through procurement, it's going to make it, I hope, better.
Yeah.
You know, we don't always want to be negative on here. Positive. We want to see something coming forward that is good. You know, and we can't stop out there what's happening in. I would dearly love to see all stores stop using, but there are things in stores where meat and things, they can't put them in cardboard or because it's going to seep through. So there are, and as you said, Susan, the medical system is what stuff goes into the mix. It's probably more than we're doing, you know, when we see the stuff that does go into the medical bins and it is, you know, it is all single-use plastic. So, and that's nowhere, we can't touch that, I don't think, not really. But I just think we need, when it does come back, we just need things to move forward. You know, if we're not going to move forward, there's no point in this coming to us. No. You know, it's, as I've said before, we need some more meat on the bones. Councillor Muldoon.
Yeah, just to say apologies, I've moved on to the next report, and that was the note report is the next report, so apologies for that. That was my mistake. Just to say, I don't want to hold this up. I would like to see the more of the data, but if you're going to get that to us tomorrow, I'm actually happy to agree the preferred option tonight. I don't know how other people feel, because I think it is, you know, it's really important. Not only is it getting into the seas and into, you know, aquatic animals, but then of course we eat some of those fish And there's, I mean, I don't. If you don't want nightmares, don't go and read the health implications of that whole process, because it's not good. So I don't want to hold this up, and thanks for the work that you've done on it. It sounds like a good place to implement the resources that we've got. Thank you.
If we're going to get that through tomorrow, through all our inboxes, and going for option 2, but we want to see something next time. You know, it gives us quite a while to get something done, and if we can implement some of it, all of it we'd like to see, but, you know, it's not in the real world, it's not going to happen that quickly, but we want to see something by June. It gives you quite a space of time to bring that done. So is everybody happy with option 2? Yes? Thank you. I've got you again, Susan.
Yes, so this report is just an update on the waste services in terms of the service changes that are coming in September, and the improvement plan that has been put in place to address some of the service issues that have happened. So if I give you a little bit of background. So there was a new national resources and waste strategy in 2018. Following that, and we were already starting the process of writing our own strategy, but we took into account the resources and waste strategy whilst writing it, with the caveat that there is still consultations going on now that haven't had responses from the government that still could influence our strategy. So there is a slight caveat that we are waiting for a lot of information to do with quite major changes. So we do have that issue that we're waiting for. So we consulted with the public about changes to the waste service, and after a period of consultation and looking at what could deliver on the best recycling and value for money, it was agreed that we would go to an alternate weekly collection for refuse, which means a fortnightly collection for refuse. A fortnightly collection for green waste would remain. We would deliver a weekly recycling service and a weekly food waste collection as well, that would be separate from our garden waste, as opposed to it being combined, which it is now. In order to deliver so obviously it was planned to be in place for September 22, and that was postponed due to some service issues, which I will just talk about a bit later. We are now planning on that being delivered in September 23, and in order to deliver that, we've purchased a new fleet. We have awarded a anaerobic digestion food waste contract, which is where the food is turned into electricity and sold to the grid, and so partly electricity and partly sold for like a liquid fertiliser as well. We have purchased all of our internal and external kitchen waste caddies that we will be delivering to our residents. We've developed a comms plan, and we've done, as I said earlier, some engagement with schools. So we did a whole education and engagement piece with schools, and we asked them to be part of our vehicle naming. So the children from various different schools did an image and came up with some names. So we've had winners from all of the schools that were involved in that, and they will be appearing on the new trucks in due course. So what we've left to do is we are just about to start configuring the routes for the new rounds on the fortnightly basis, and obviously all of the food waste and all of the other elements of the service. And that's a really major piece of work. So we're putting quite a lot of resource into that, because it's really important that we get that right. So as I said earlier, this was originally planned for September 22, but it was identified after an internal review that there were some issues with the service. So that put back the delivery of this service change. And what has been created was an improvement plan to rectify some of the issues that the service was having. So it covered 7 main areas. So we identified to start with that we had some issues with some of our internal processes. So we had, what we've done to improve that is look at our management processes. We are ensuring that each area, for example, health and safety, recruitment, sickness, has like a service champion or expert that, so whilst all of the management team have responsibility, they have areas of expertise that they can go to get the right information from people. We've also got a really robust HR team who support us with all of those issues as well. We have been developing at quite some speed our workforce engagement. So one of the areas that we were criticised for was that we weren't engaging with our workforce, and they were being, talked to, told to do rather than, engage with and sort of their opinions sought. So we are. What we've done to mitigate that is we've talked to them and listened to them. That they have had various different uniform changes, so they are allowed to wear shorts in the summer. We have spoken to them about, we got a lot of feedback about their gloves and their boots not being fit for purpose. They were safe but not comfortable or not long lasting. So we've run some trials with gloves and boots and got feedback from them to ascertain what the best one is for them to do their job. We have also been providing them another area that we were told to improve on was when they were giving us feedback about issues they were having out on the street that kind of stopped, nothing was done about it. So we're now providing them kind of 360 feedback on, if they report an issue. A prime example was we had someone on the green waste crew, they had someone threw suitcases into the green waste, straight into the truck, which A is really dangerous and B totally contaminated the load. So we got enforcement involved, and that person was dealt with via our enforcement route, but we fed that back to the crews, which was really important to them, so that they felt like they were, they are being listened to and we're acting upon what they're saying. So that's been a really key positive move with our workforce engagement. We focused a lot on recruitment. We have a rolling recruitment advert that's just ongoing. As everyone knows, there's a real HGV driver shortage at the moment. We're constantly interviewing and trying to get the right calibre of person on board. And we did hold a recruitment day back in December, and on the 1st of February we should have 17 members who were agency workers will be becoming FTEs with us and becoming as permanent employees. So that's a really positive move. Our fleet was audited to make sure that there were no issues in terms of compliance. That audit came out really well. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 minor non-conformities, but nothing was a major problem, and those non-conformities have been fixed. So that was really positive. We were very aware that customer satisfaction was not good in terms of our complaints management processes. So we've implemented an audit and monitoring process for all of our complaints. So our supervisors will go out. They now have been given kind of digital tools to go and monitor a complaint. So if it's a repeat complaint, they need to ensure that's monitored consistently until that complaint is no longer a complaint and they've fixed the issue. And what was part of the issue there was that we didn't have an audit trail. It was all on kind of a scrap of paper here and there, whereas now they're doing it digitally and it's being recorded. So which is A, great for our complaints management, but B, obviously is great for performance management as well of our staff.
And can I just push you on a little bit? Because you're probably answering all our questions that we're probably going to ask you anyway, I would think.
That's
but
fine.
Do you mind?
No, would you like me to stop?
And yes, if you don't
That's
mind.
fine,
And
of
then we
course.
can, if you've got anything to say afterwards that you think we may have missed, then I think that might be better, because we're going to bombard you now with questions. I've actually got a few. The small bin, I've never been too sure about it. I'm not sure how it's going to work. It depends where it goes, whether it goes back to the same place that it was in the beginning. I can see things going wrong with a small bin. We don't really know how big this bin is. What bin is it going to go on top of? There was talk about chaining it to, but then that has to be taken off the bin. So I'm just worried that that's not going to work. My other question is, are there going to be separate vans or lorries to take the waste, just the waste? Because that means that another lorry's got to go out on the same journey that the lorry's going to pick the rest of the stuff up. I'd just like that to be answered. Not too sure about shorts for them to wear. I can see health and safety going wrong there. If they get something damaged on their leg or something, I can see some things going wrong with that. The contract to provide waste as a separate waste stream and to use it for electricity, where is that going to go? Because obviously that's going to go somewhere. That's all in with the caddies. Separate vehicle. 2.6, changes following an internal review. A Waste Service Improvement Board was formed. I'd like to know who's on that board. I can just see some things that don't wear well. I'm anticipating what my residents are going to say before it even comes. I'm not sure. I don't know. Perhaps we didn't think this through. I don't know whether there could have been something on the side of a bin. I don't know. Just seems to me that people have got to start putting numbers on small bins now. And I'm not saying those bins are going to end up where, if we've already got, I don't know, say 15 bins in an area, you're going to have another 15 bins in that area. Are they going to be picked up? They're going to be picked up on the same day as another bin, obviously. But it's just, I need those things answered for me. Thank you, Susan. Sorry to give you so many.
That's fine, right? Hopefully I won't miss anything. So the caddies, so there's two. So there's one for in your kitchen, which is a 5-litre caddy, and the one that is external is a, let me get this right, 27-litre caddy. So it's small enough that it doesn't need wheels, and the outside, both of them obviously, and that you can lift it without needing wheels. So I have one at home. I don't live in this borough, and it has a lockable lid so that it kind of shuts it, so it becomes fox-proof or rodent-proof or whatever. And it can sit. Mine lives on top of my wheelie bin. So that it doesn't sit on the floor and that creatures or anything can't get it anyway.
My worry there is sorry, Susan. My worry there is if the bin people are going to put these back on the right bin, so they don't marry up with each other. And as for having a small bin in my kitchen, I think when this was muted before, we've all got little bins in our kitchen. I don't particularly want another one in my kitchen because I've already got one. So I think there's a lot of people who already have that small bin in their kitchen. And are we wasting money by giving them? Surely it's better to take the food straight out to the little bin and put it in there. I don't want us to be wasting money, putting things there that don't need to be there.
So the caddies are small enough that they can live under your sink. But I think what we were planning on doing was a member engagement session, and we are going to get samples, obviously, of the caddies before they're delivered. So, with your permission, obviously, we would do an engagement session with the caddies so that you can see them and you can see how big they are, and come up with any queries, if that makes sense. Does that answer caddies?
Yeah, the one was about the board and the short.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, no, that's fine. So, no, that's fine. So, I think next you mentioned trucks. So the trucks we bought have a rear lifting system like the normal trucks for waste, and then they have a side lifting system for food. So I say waste, it's going to be recycling in the back and then food on the side. So there isn't an extra truck. It will all be collected in one. Health and safety with shorts, I absolutely hear where you're coming from on that one. The crews are only allowed to wear them if they do not collect side waste. The only way they are allowed to wear them is if they are just moving bins, and none of them are allowed to go into the tipping point wearing shorts. So if the driver goes in, he does not get out of the cab. So to reduce the risk. The food is going to an organisation called BioCollectors. Sorry, I forgot that for a moment. Which is based, it's in Mitcham near the Croydon area. They are doing all of the transport in vehicles that are fuelled by biofuel from the food that they are turning into gas and electricity. So, which reduces our carbon footprint. So that was one of the things that we wrote into the specification, is that we wanted sustainable transport involved, and that's something we're writing into all future contracts as well. So that's where that's going. And I'm sure once we're using it, if there's any appetite, we can arrange a visit for anybody that wants to go, so that you can have a look around and see. It's actually really interesting. It's kind of like the mechanical equivalent of like the human body, of like how it is like a digestion process.
Why are we not contemplate doing one in Thurrock that would help, if it's not as far away as Croydon, to take it?
I haven't got the answer to that.
Can you come back to me on that, Susan? Oh, I'd like to see things stay in Thurrock. I don't see why they have to go all the way to Croydon to bring back the electricity. You know, perhaps it's something we should be looking at.
We have to go to Bow for our recycling, don't we?
Yeah, but you know, it's a possibility that we can. There are people that will bring it into the borough. And just the other one was the board. Who's on the?
So the board has Councillor Jeffries, the portfolio holder, on it. Anita is on it. Julie Nelder and Julie Rogers, who are directors and acting directors for the service. And then I'm happy to name everyone, but there is where we've had issues with health and safety. We've got a representative from the health and safety service. We've had representatives from Fleet. Obviously, myself, I sit on it. We've got where there's been digital transformation. We've got people from the digital team. We've had customer service and information management. So it's really been a cross-council board, because there's been issues that need looking at across the piece.
So we will get a report from this board.
Anita?
Through Councillor Jeffries, yeah?
I think it's fair to say the board is very much an operational board, which is very much programme or project managing the delivery of this. So it is very operationally focused. So whilst we've got a range of different people that sit on it, some of them are there for a period of time because it's task orientated, and then wouldn't be on it the rest of the time. So it's very much a day-to-day operational thing, rather than, if you like, a board a bit like this. It's not that kind of set up.
Yeah, and Councillor Jeffries will feed something back to us from whatever. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions? Councillor Byrne?
But one thing, you just mentioned visit. I think one of the best visits we had to educate people went to Bowwaters, and they see our waste coming in. We call it different between dirty waste and clean waste, how they segregate it. And if you go there, you know you're just armed with every question your residents are going to ask, and it opens your eyes to these people, because you think, you see the mountains of plastic bags, and you see the waste and the smell and everything, and it's a couple of hours. So I recommend that if we can organise a visit for that. It's brilliant. So, but the thing is, with me, complaints. I've been a councillor nearly 4 years. I've never, ever had anybody put their hand up and say, yeah, we agree with it, it's our fault, ever. There's an excuse. You never, ever get them. Just saying when we come in, a really serious one. A couple of weeks ago, a resident said to me, we're walking my dog, the cab opened, the driver and the crew member got out, and the smell of cannabis was unbelievable, which it is, an undescribable smell. So I put in a complaint and sent a letter, and they said, driver and crew member said they don't smoke. Case closed. That's you got an HGV driver driving around stoned, and what I got back was they don't smoke, so it can't be them. That's shocking, isn't it? There should be I said instant drug test when they come back. We don't do drug testing. We might do it in a couple of weeks' time, but say they are serious complaints, and they just get thrown away. You're lying, or the residents lying. And so complaints. These are serious complaints, and nobody really cares, for what I can see.
I don't think anybody.
They lie.
They do care.
But
I don't think they don't care, but I think there is something. Renita's only been in post for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think we'll give her time to.
Well, I got that last week. Cannabis. Such a bit of drug test instantly.
But I think we should give Anita time to take all this on board, and I'm sure that once she's been in post for quite a while, a few months, she'll start to get what we're doing here. But I think if there's anything ever reported, it should be. I mean, I've reported people smoking on around, and yes, I do agree with you, nothing's done. They're not supposed to smoke, but they do. And I think that's what Susan said just a little while ago. There's been no sort of looking after staff. They're really left to their own devices. So they're looking after themselves in a way. They're not being guided in what to do. So I think we've got to be a little bit more stringent in that, because I think the bin men have got to realise that it's our residents that are watching them. You know, it's a bit like when we used to have the blue bins. They used to be physically chucked across the road, you know, to an oncoming car. So that is, you know, something that wasn't addressed. But I think all these things that we address probably only comes from our residents anyway. Yeah. You know, and most of us are not out there following a truck round, but our residents see it ongoing because it's pulling up outside their house. So I think we should give Anita time to get into the position and find out what is going on. Do you want to come back, Anita, on that one?
I was just about to say the council, just as I understand it, recently approved its drug and alcohol policy, and obviously we will be implementing that policy. And in order to do that, we need evidence, and then we can pursue it. So that's all I can comment. I can't comment, obviously, on what you've raised previously. But I just want to give that assurance, and likewise, you know, just like we, you know, want to listen to our staff. They said we did demonstrate that we are acting equally. We want to be able to do that in terms of other issues that are being raised, whether they be around performance, conduct, or whatever. That needs to be addressed as well.
I think if we're getting reports from our residents, then perhaps we need more to do spot checks. You know, that sort of is natural way of processing. I would think, you know, you're not actually pulling them up then and there, but a little process of, we're just doing a spot check today, see if you're all right, or how you're getting on, or
if we
whatever.
have evidence that we can then use to, you know, to be able to pursue an investigation, then we can pursue it. If it's just anecdotal and we have, you know, we don't know the what, the where, and the when, and the exact details, then it's a little bit like looking for a needle in a haystack. But if we're provided with information, whether it's from an internal whistleblower or other sources, we will gather that information and we will deal with it in line with the council policy.
No, only to say that we have started a monitoring process, exactly what you said, of doing spot checks. So each supervisor is out monitoring a minimum of a crew per month. So every crew will be spot checked. They'll be watched where, you know, they're not aware they're being watched, so that we can monitor performance, and then we will actually go and engage with them, so that if there have been issues on that round, you know, for example, if there's been an issue with a resident, they can let us know. We look at health and safety, we look at any issues with the rounds, there's a whole multitude of things. And again, we've put in a digital process for that, so it's auditable, and that we can check that that work is being done, we can check who's being monitored, and that if there are any issues, we can act upon it.
If I could just pick up on something, the way it came across, Sue, is that when we talk about that they're out there, monitoring the staff, when we talk about them not where they can be seen, it doesn't sound like we're hiding behind trees and all the rest of it. Clearly, what we're saying is we want to be able to observe them naturally going about their work. Clearly, if there's something that they observe in the moment which needs to be addressed, then they will go to the crews and talk to them there and then, because it's in the moment that you need to sometimes capture these things.
Councillor Muldowney? Oh, sorry, I can't see you down the end. My apologies.
I thought you'd seen me because you actually looked at me and nodded. Okay. Anyway, yes, I think we need to acknowledge the fact that the government has passed legislation that puts an obligation on us to have a separate food waste collection stream. So that has to happen. So I'm glad to see that that's moving forward. It's great that you've got sustainable transport lined up for that, even though Croydon seems a long way, but at least they're using renewable energy to actually make that journey. That's really good procurement. I'm also pleased to hear that there is now a proper audit trail for complaints, because not so long ago I wasn't even allowed to raise complaints on residents' behalf unless they'd had three of the same colour being missed within a month, 4 weeks, which was just absolutely ridiculous. So also I've had, the same as Councillor Byrne, I've had a history of particularly assisted bin collections. I think there still is a problem with assisted bin collections, and I just wanted to ask you, could you have a look at that? I acknowledge that you need to post and you're still finding your feet, so I do acknowledge that, and these issues are pre-existing, obviously your time in charge. So having said that, I think there still is, I still get a lot of complaints, and obviously these are very vulnerable people, and we want to take care of them really as a priority. So it sounds like you've done something about that already. So
yeah, so just on that, so firstly, we've just started a process of checking the assisted list is still fit for purpose, and that people haven't moved, and that we make sure the service is as it should be. And then we've done some consultation with different departments, including our communities department, to see if there is an option to put a sticker on the bin, so that the crew, not something, we don't want, what we were conscious of was we didn't want to highlight vulnerable people, but we also wanted to do it in a way that would demonstrate to the crews, because if we, for example, get sickness or a holiday and the usual crew isn't on it, it's sometimes just a matter of it's just being a mistake, and that often is the case, and can continue just because of they do between 13 and 1,500 bins a day, and often it's just human error. But if we could have a facility where we can highlight that bin, we think that that's a really positive step to them becoming more aware, and them can't use that. Not that I want an excuse, but there is no excuse. We should be collecting it. So we've done some consultation. No one seemed to think it was a problem. They said it was no different from kind of like a key box being on the side of a house. So it didn't raise any issues. So once we're replying to our residents who still require that service, we're saying that we're going to be doing this, and if they have any issues, that they can come back to us. So obviously, if someone does have an issue, then we wouldn't do it.
Okay, so that will just be a coloured sticker or something, which just lets the bin crews. No, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's fantastic, because I've had some absolute horror stories, where assisted bins haven't been collected. The worst one was the assisted bin wasn't collected, but the bin was collected from a neighbour and then left in the driveway of the assisted bin collection, and that person couldn't move the bin, couldn't get out of her driveway, She's obviously got a disabled car, but couldn't actually leave the house until her husband came home from work and could move the bins. So that was probably one of the worst. And it's been really, and it recurs, the same people get in contact with me and say it hasn't been done. So I'm glad to hear that you're taking action on that. My second question was, are we still, so the changes that are happening in September this year now, we are in 23 now, so this year, will recycling still be staying to weekly? And can you even guarantee that, given the financial situation and the fact that, the commissioners are in charge now, really, aren't they?
Sorry. Yeah, so sorry. The 2.1, we clarify the regime that we're intending to bring forward, which it clarifies which is weekly and which is 2 weekly. I think it's just worth it. It's a point that Sue made early on in her presentation. We are still waiting on some government consultation, and which could affect how we collect the waste, in the sense that they may require greater source separation at the point of presentation by the resident to us. So at the moment we could collect our recycling in a commingled way. It is possible that there may be a requirement, rather like we need to collect food waste separately, that there may be requirements for us to collect other materials separately. And depending on what comes out there, we would need to rethink some of this, because there would be significant implications that we would need to work through, and would need to take that into account.
My question really is, given the financial situation of the council at the moment, are we going to be allowed to carry on with a weekly recycling collection, or will there have to be savings made there, and are we looking at having to go to weekly?
At this point in time, I genuinely can't answer that question. I mean, obviously you're all aware of the situation the council is in, and there will be some difficult decisions. But I genuinely can't answer that question because I don't know the answer.
So this is the plan at the moment, but we may have to. Okay, and I understand we're still waiting on the government to decide what it is that we have to do about different streams of recycling. Okay, but we're moving ahead with the weekly food waste collection. I know that part of the reason that was delayed is that we thought we might get some more money from government to actually implement it, but I understand that we're still waiting for government to.
There has been no response from the government on consistency or the new burdens as it stands. I can't even update you because they promised it would be out in the autumn, and we're still waiting. They have, I think, yesterday or the day before, given a response to the DRS, which is deposit return schemes, which is basically, like the old days where you buy a bottle, put a deposit, and then when you take it back for recycling, you get your deposit back. So I have to confess I haven't read that yet. So I don't know the implications for us. There'll be few implications physically for us because it's going to be managed at supermarket level rather than us. There may be some implications for the composition of our waste stream, because a lot of our materials may go into that waste stream rather than our household one. But I need to review the consultation to understand the full implications. But in terms of consistency, in terms of new burdens, and in terms of extended producer responsibility, which really impacts us, there's not been anything.
Yeah, sorry, that must be difficult to plan going ahead. Would you mind sending me that report? That would be great, thank you. And I have one last question about recycling. So what is our current recycling rate? I know the last figures I got, it was somewhere in the sort of like high 20s to low 30s. Okay, and we've got to get up to 65%.
Yeah, according to the waste strategy. I think it's also really worth noting, though, that whilst our recycling rate, could be better, we landfilled zero. Nothing went to landfill.
Nothing went to landfill. So are we actually meeting the reduction of the amount of municipal waste to landfill? That part of it, we're already meeting.
We're exceeding it, yeah.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Good. Well, that's good news. I've got a few more questions. Is that all right? Or did? Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, yeah, some of the things I was going to raise have already been asked, but I just want to very quickly get back to the thing, the drug issue, and I was having a very interesting conversation earlier on. I mean, did I pick up on this right, that there is or there is going to be essentially sort of random drug testing, drug alcohol testing, because it's fairly commonplace in many corporate worlds now, isn't it, where, you don't do the drugs because when you come in the next morning you could be tested and that would be game over. And if there isn't, then I would seriously recommend doing that. It's absolutely the way to go with this, I think. I don't think, again, if I picked up on it wrong, if it's an observational thing, I don't think that's how you should be doing it anyway. These people should know that they're just turning up to work one day and then they may be tested completely at random without any knowledge, because obviously word gets around, probably within management or whatever, there's tip-offs, blah-de-blah. That cannot be allowed to happen. We're stepping into the modern age now. This needs to be implemented correctly. So that's probably, like I say, more of an observation. But what is it going to be random?
Yeah, I was about to say, it's a very recent policy, so I'll be honest with you, I haven't read that policy in terms of establishing its content and whether it goes as far as random drug testing or what it actually contains, so to be honest. But I am very clear that if we have evidence, or whether it be a whistleblower or the source is external to the organisation, and we're able to be pointed in the right direction as to where we need to be looking, we certainly will be investigating. We've already had those discussions, so we're clear. I don't know if my colleague wants to comment further on that side of things, but I'm very clear about how we might take that forward with their assistance.
Thank you. Just to introduce myself, Assistant Director for Investigation, Enforcement and Community Safety. So I feel like I can add something to this for you, really. It would, listening to Councillor Bryan speak earlier, that is something, something that my team would be, something that we would be interested in taking forward, and perhaps I can discuss that away from the meeting for obvious reasons. However, just like Nita said, I haven't read the policy around drug testing yet. To my knowledge, it hasn't formally been accepted. But what we can say is there are three general terms of drug testing, and that is completely random, then it's intelligence-led, or it's incident-led. So those are the three general terms of employment where drug testing falls in. I know down in the ports, for instance, an drug testing incident would take place if you had a near miss or anything like that. You would automatically have that testing as well as drink and drugs. So it is something that the council takes seriously. We have been working it as a collective. I know my opinion has been sought, and happy to sort of take those kind of allegations that you're suggesting earlier, Councillor, forward for you. So.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is just speaking as a relatively new councillor. I mean, obviously, we've come through a period of, really quite appalling bin service. There's no other ways to say it. And obviously, there's much in the report about improvements and ways forward. But I really just have to ask, why on earth hasn't this been done before? And it's these things like the drug thing. I mean, this is sort of complacency at managerial level, isn't it? Really? And I I'm reading things here, and this would not happen in a normal corporate world. No. We wouldn't be here sitting talking about the improvements and the way forward and how good it's going to be, because flipping heck, it should have been like it ages ago. And that's really what I like to say on that. The caddies, I mean, I can't see problems with it. I think we're going to wake up on a windy morning one day and they're all going to be like up against someone's brick wall. You know? It's going to be a bit of a laugh. And actually, I just picked up in 2.1 as well, because it's just a little thing I like to talk about and ask about. And I know this is not the correct place and time to bring it up, but really, you know, driving up the recycling rates, we really do need another recycling centre. And that's, I know this is the wrong place to bring it up at the wrong time,
No, fine.
but it's, you know, it said improve urban recycling rates, working with businesses and local authorities. Let's get ourselves another recycling centre on the west of the borough. Stop people driving miles after miles just to get rid of something. You know, give them the facility on the other side. Thank you.
Yeah, just to say, now we've got a new broom, sweeping clean, I hope. The mess we've had with bins, and every ward councillor's had this trouble when bins have been missed, roads have been missed. It's been carrying on for way too long now. And I'm just hoping that in February, did you say we would have more staff?
So they're already on board as agency staff, and they'll be taken on as full-time employees.
So I would be perhaps get on an even keel now.
Yes. So the other thing that we've done to try and deal, because the missed bins have been high, we have, over the last 2 weeks, happened 2 weeks ago, we rebalanced our rounds. So some of our rounds were really large, and we were struggling to complete them, which is why we had such a large volume of missed bins. So we did a lot of work to rebalance those rounds. We did a lot of consultation with the crews about it. They looked at maps. We've been getting feedback. So the rounds ran out 2 weeks ago. There is still, obviously, there's a difference between doing something on a map and actually then running it. So the crews have been providing feedback. There's still some, you know, this road needs to be moved to that one. So there's still a few teething issues. But on the whole, over the last 2 weeks, for refuse and recycling, the service has performed much better than it has over previous months. And we're still striving to iron out those other issues. Obviously, we have had an issue with the brown bin service, which has been down to staffing issues. We've had incredibly high sickness rates. The recruitment, like I said, is ongoing, but we're struggling to get sufficient staff of the quality that we're looking for as well. So that recruitment campaign continues. It is an ongoing rolling campaign. So we are really working hard towards resolving those issues.
Thank you. Another thing, we leave our bins outside by our gate. I have brought this up before at one of these meetings, and the dustmen come, they collect our bins, but we don't get them put back. They're strewn everywhere, because I put mine outside my gate. I've got a large grass area. They just get strewn, not just mine, neighbours, they get strewn across the grass. And then there's a parking place where they just leave the bins on there as well. And what's worrying me now is with these little caddies we're going to get, they're going to be everywhere, aren't they? So I've wondered, I can just see, like Councillor Arnold said, a mess with these bins. I don't know, you might put me right, I might be wrong, but...
No, I mean, the crews should be returning the bins to where they got them from. So if there are areas of concern, let us know and I can address them. But yeah, that is the management instruction. Wherever you picked up the bin is where it should go back to.
I think as well, the crews that go round, in my area, they couldn't get into a certain piece of cul-de-sac, and it was reported, and we got yellow lines on each corner, and that solved the whole problem, you know, because they couldn't get round because the cars were parked, and now the yellow lines are there, they're not parking, so it's stopped that. And I think if the crews know, they can just mention it, you know, and somebody will mention it to the councillor as well in the ward, and that gets done. So if there's just a simple, sometimes something they can do, which will make it easier for them, to get round. Councillor Olive Joss, come back in. Sorry, Councillor Knowles down here. Coming down there.
It's my turn now.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand, Councillor Chuckwer. Yeah, go on, Councillor.
I know some of the questions actually has been asked. Talking about the manpower, again, recruitment of staff and, drivers as well. Have you got enough drivers? And again, I'm thinking about you hiring the agency staff is going to be more expensive.
So no, we don't have enough drivers at the moment, and we do have agency drivers. The agency is set to the equivalent of a full-time post, so we're not paying extra for the drivers. But obviously there's agency fees on top. But we have been interviewing and trying to recruit drivers, but we obviously, whilst we're short of drivers, we don't want to accept applicants who aren't willing to, or who don't interview as we need them to perform for the service. We don't want to create an issue where we're recruiting or we're employing someone because we're short. We want to make sure that they're right for the service and they're going to deliver to the needs of our residents. So we're trying to be sensible with our recruitment practices.
It's worth sort of saying, they need to be competent, safe and reliable drivers or loaders. We've got to know they're going to turn up for work each day. And when Sue's talked about, we're going to be, by February, taking on agency staff as permanent employees. These are people that have worked for us for a little while through the agency that we're satisfied do meet those requirements, and we want to take them on as employees. That doesn't mean we don't employ directly. We do as well, but we need to be satisfied they're the right people to do the job. And unfortunately, we have had situations where we've had some people come in and we've needed to move them on and say there isn't a working relationship very quickly because it's been clear that they've not been suitable.
Thank you for that. Talking about this new waste bin, where does it leave the green bin? Are you going to get rid of the green bins?
No, so the green bin is in the refuse bin, do you mean? Yeah. So no intention. So the green bins will be collected fortnightly. So the intention is that we remove anything recyclable or compostable from that bin. So the only thing that is left in that bin is items that cannot be repurposed. And have to go to an energy from waste plant. Everything else, so the food obviously can be turned into electricity and compost. The recycling is repurposed into very different things, and the green waste will be composted. So just what is left should be very minimal and very light. But no, there's no intention to remove that service.
Just looking at the winning names, can you tell us about the winning names? Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't want to interrupt it, sir, because my question is to Susan, so that's okay. That's okay.
Would you like me to send them through and I send the report tomorrow?
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah,
Yes,
that'd be good.
please,
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. That's all.
Yeah, sorry, Susan. I don't mean to pick over your words, but I wrote something down a short while ago. It's one of these bullet points. Is recruitment days have been held to bring on agency staff by the 1st of February. But you said should have when you was reporting to us, and I thought, I just made a little note. So, are there going to be 19 agency loaders starting, or you hope to have 19?
Yeah, no. So all of the onboarding's going through, and the start date is the 1st of February.
Right. Okay. Sorry to pick over your words.
No, that's fine. No worries.
Yeah. So obviously, other councillors have spoken a bit about the waste service. I'm glad that you've been doing so much consultation with staff, because I think historically staff have got the short end of the stick, if you like, the sticky end of the stick. So I think it's good that you're making an effort to improve relations with the bin workers. Now, as I understand it at the moment, because of staffing issues, we can't run a brown bin service, or the brown bin service is reduced. I mean, obviously at the moment it's not such an issue because it's still winter, but we are going to be heading into spring. Are you going to be able to collect brown bins on, you know, a proper schedule? I mean, I don't think we've managed really to do a fortnightly brown bin collection for any sustained period of time for at least 2 years, from memory. How confident are you that come February, the beginning of spring, we're actually going to be able to even do a 2-weekly collection?
This is firmly on my radar, and this is why the recruitment is ongoing. So over the last 2 weeks, we've taken on some additional agency staff to cover the recruitment and some of the sickness issues that we've got, with the view to training them so that they can then, because you can't just get the staff in and then expect them to go. They don't know how to run the rounds. They don't know, you know, you've got to make sure they're confident in loading the bins and driving the rounds as well. So we've taken on those staff for that purpose, to start running the green waste rounds. And the intention is from Mondays that we start week 1 and that we're delivering that service. The caveat, I guess, is that we, you know, if we do have high levels of sickness, or if a vehicle breaks down, that the priorities are refuse and recycling. There are 2 main priorities. So it's unfortunately the garden waste rounds that do suffer. But like I said, this is my priority at the moment, is to make sure that we've got enough staff to run that service, and particularly by springtime when everybody starts really needing it. So with answer to your question about confidence, it's work in progress. It's difficult to say that I couldn't tell you I'm 100% confident, because of the staffing issues, but that it is like our number 1 priority is getting our staff on, managing our sick processes so that we can make sure that we are absolutely fully staffed to run the whole service.
I mean, 80% confident, or not quite that confident?
I think it's really difficult. I mean, I've only been in post. I've been in post for kind of 6-8 weeks, and obviously, I'm coming on the back of, like you said, a long time that the service hasn't been delivered as it should be. And so what I'm really conscious of is over-promising and under-delivering. So I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm nervous about the service delivery, but it is our number 1 priority.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, from my point of view, I'm asking the question because I know, come the spring, I'm going to have lots of emails and phone calls and people stopping me in the street, and it's going to be an issue. So, you know, most people are reasonable if you can actually explain to them what the situation is and give them some kind of idea. You know, let them know that work's being done to improve things, and give them some kind of idea when we might expect a proper service. I think you're absolutely right about not wanting to overpromise and underdeliver, because that's been happening, you know, for a long time now, and that makes people mad. It's better to just tell the truth and have them be a bit annoyed, but at least, you know, not think, oh well, it's all back to normal now, and then yet again it's not getting delivered. So the brown bin, are there any plans for introducing a charge for the brown bin, which was mooted at one point?
I haven't got an answer to that at the moment.
No, I mean, at this point in time, there are no proposals to introduce a charge. I mean, we've got to get the...
But you're fairly confident now with the rejigging of the rounds that the green and the blue bins, or the refuge and the some people have black or grey bins, don't they? But that stream and the recycling stream should now be running smoothly.
Yeah, I think bar just a few ironing out issues, we're practically there, and within the next, well, this week we've done a little bit more jigging, jigging around of the rounds, and we're pretty confident that, I mean, over the last 2 weeks, you know, the levels of missed roads have significantly reduced, and the levels of service requests, I can only speak anecdotally, but have reduced, and we seem to be on, you know, we're getting really positive feedback from the crews. We're listening to what they're saying, and it seems that, you know, by silence, we're getting positive feedback from our residents as well. So, you know, if there is any issues that you hear, please, you know, flag them up to us. I mean, for example, we have been aware of a couple of assisted collection issues where we've rejigged the rounds. So we've literally printed off lists as well as an IT system. So we're trying to iron out those issues. And yeah, I'm confident that those rounds are going really well.
And the final question is, have I forgotten the final question? Oh, the other issue that's come up, and Councillor Redstall did touch on this earlier, is roads not getting collected because there's cars parked in bad places and obstructions. So I wonder if you could tell us, sort of for all of our benefits, so we can pass it on to residents, what do the council actually do in that situation?
So on the kind of ad hoc occasions, if we go to a road and we can't get in because of parked cars, we've got leaflets that we'll put on the car to say we've been unable to access. The crews will attempt to get in. If they can't get in, they'll go and do their work, and they'll try and get in again that day. So if they can't then get in, we have to try again the next day, but they make a note that that road was blocked. If we've got like a persistent offender where there's always either the same road blocked or the same car blocking it, we've worked with colleagues in our either parking team, if there's enforceable lines, and that's worked really, really well. And if there aren't any parking restrictions, we have worked with colleagues in our, I can't remember the name of the team, in the Transport and Highways team. T&D team, to see if there's any restrictions we can put in. So, I think Councillor Redstall, you mentioned that had happened. So we're actively trying to fix those problems, but it is as frustrating for us because obviously every time we can't get in, we have to send a HGV back to that one road in an area where there's no other collections. So it's actually costing money and fuel, it's costing time. So it is really frustrating for everyone involved.
Thank you. Hopefully Anita and Susan have been put in place to deliver. And if you don't deliver, then, you know, there are consequences. But I think you've started well. So we just hope that it gets better, you know. And obviously I hope we're watching other areas where it doesn't happen, you know, why they do it so well. And then we have problems. Obviously, we've had problems with staff, and that doesn't help. But I think we've got to do better for our residents, and I think also communication's got to be a core thing. We've got to get through to people why they haven't had their bin. As long as they know why they haven't had their bins collected, then they'll understand more. So it's just getting it out there, whether we use Neil's Nub News or we use our own comms. We need to get that message out to people, because as long as they've got the right information, they don't mind. You know, most of the time they get their bins collected anyway. We've got a problem in my ward where we've had enforcement out where people just leaving their bins out all the time and not putting them away ever. So that's enforcement goes in and tells them they've got to pull their bin into their curtilage. But we're obviously getting that with the brown bins now because they've not been collected. People are just leaving them out. So I wish you luck, both of you, because you're going to need it. You know, it's not an easy for the portfolio either. You know, it's not an easy one to get right. There's so many facets to it. So, but thank you very much. Okay. The recommendation is just a recommend to 1.1. Is everybody in agreement to that? Okay, thank you very much. We're obviously saying ta-ta to you both. And Neil, you're not staying?
Can I speak about that before, please? Can I?
Just let the officers go.
Before Neil goes?
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
So we are still live recording, everyone.
Come off recording then.
No, we are still
No,
recording.
I want to still record. please.
Okay.
This is an exempt item, okay?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
As long as watch what you say, please.
Okay, I'm not going to disagree. I'll say what I want to say. You got no direct. You can't tell me what to say and what not to say.
Just
Right.
asking you to be careful, that's all.
I don't need to be careful. For me, right, I can see no reason why there is a pink paper exemption on this session. There is no good reason why 49 councillors, the press, or this is not in the public domain. It goes against everything Councillor Coxey was saying about being open and transparent. Can anybody tell me what point this comes under that warrants this behind closed doors in a very secret session? There is absolutely no reason for it. We are just keeping secrets like we've done for the last 2-3 years. It's wrong on so many levels. Thank you.
I don't think it's actually keeping secrets. I
It
think
is.
it's a pink paper is a pink paper because of there may be names mentioned
There's
or
no names
something.
mentioned. This
Well, there
is
is.
just purely roles. It's not. It's a job. It is a role with no names mentioned. There's no policeman mentioned. This should
Well,
be
there
in
is.
the public
There
domain.
is. An inspector's name is mentioned in that report, and he's not happy about that. But I mean,
Should we vote on it?
Councillor Arnold.
Yes, I mean, I'm not going to dwell on this, but as far as I'm concerned, you hadn't actually moved to the next item on the
Oh, I'm
agenda.
sorry, yeah.
And I do believe Councillor Burns is grandstanding just so he can get it on there, and I think it's appalling behaviour, I really do.
Standing.
Can we not have?
Well, I'm
Yeah.
grandstanding, sticking up for public.
I also am confused about why this is a pink paper. I've got here the Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 Part 1, descriptions of exempt information. It says it's relating to paragraph 3, which I haven't got. Point 3 says information relating to any particular occupier or former occupier or applicant for accommodation provided by or at the expense of the authority. Well, that clearly doesn't apply to this paper.
Can I clarify that? It's in
Thank you.
relation to the part of the legislation, and point 3 is information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information.
The business affairs.
That's the point of exemption. If you have an exempt item, you have to say the reason why, and
Yeah.
that's the reason.
Can you say what that means in layman's terms so that everybody can understand why this item's exempt?
Perhaps the officer, basically, you didn't.
Yeah, my understanding of it is I came to this report with an exempt piece already, but my understanding of it is that the conversation is the changing of roles potentially of people outside of our organisation, as well as the financial contribution to that organisation itself, and therefore that stands outside of the financial obligations of the council in-house, and it steps into a third party, and that's my understanding of why it was required to be exempt.
Michael. We're not going to get this done, so with us talking to each other, so I think we're going to go on to item 7. Neil, I'm sorry to have to ask you to
Well, you're
go.
ignoring it. Surely there's got to be a vote or something. There is no reason. Is there? You talk about roles. You're not talking. What?
Okay, we'll take a vote.
Well, you can't just do what you want to do. It's obviously set
It's
up
not
with
doing what I want to
He's
do,
called
Councillor
me
Byrne.
on grandstanding. This is obviously vote. You've already decided on a vote before we've even come here.
I'm just going for that it's on a pink paper, and I respect
But
the
there's no.
views of the
There's
pink
15
paper.
points on that, and there's not. That doesn't cover any one of them.
But it says on the agenda itself, members are asked to consider whether the press and public should be excluded from the meeting, and so normally that is a question that
you do
is
it.
answered by members.
Right,
when we've
can we
had
have a
exempt
vote then?
papers Before.
We know it's free too, don't we? But free or when you do casting vote. It's done already, and I'll add it up now.
Well,
Let's go
let's
for
do it
motions.
anyway.
Okay, those in agreement to carry on with the pink paper. and obscure the press and public. Who wants to leave it as a pink paper? Can we have a vote?
What,
And continue to,
Who goes exempt?
yeah, so that the press and
You've
public
been
are
prodded
not
to vote for it.
not here at the moment.
You've been prodded to vote for it. That's what the lady said.
Yeah, for the pink paper.
I was of the opinion that a pink paper means that
Yes.
everybody is asked to leave
Yes.
except for the people
Yes,
on the
so
committee.
could we have a vote on that?
And that is what I would like to vote on.
Yes.
Point of clarity, can we confirm that we're not being asked to... Yeah, obviously, if we decide that it needs to be excluded, then it's a pink paper, but we're being asked to vote on whether we think it should be excluded from press and public
exactly
or not.
what it says.
That's what we're voting on.
That's the showboating I'm doing, asking for actually some on the agenda to be adhered to and not roughshod over. If that's
Right, can we have a vote on for the pink paper and just take general public and the press out of it? Against? Three, so...
And the only thing I would raise is if there was a decision that it was to go the other way, my advice would be that we would need to get legal advice, and the report would have to be deferred, because obviously if people are saying there's exempt confidential information that could not be disclosed,
We've got the expert.
that's the alternative.
Michael?
We've got the expert that can't even explain
Thank
it.
you,
so
I can
maybe
do
we-
that.
Yeah, I would far remove myself from an expert of the local government. Hence, we have democratic services, and as she suggested, if we're going to disagree with what is on the paper at the moment, then potentially we would need to get advice whether we were to go forward in that manner. That would be my only comment.
I've actually read it in the same way, Neil, as you, and can't see any reason why it was on pink paper, to be honest. But I have to go along with pink paper, and we can't get legal advice, because we haven't got anybody here to give us legal advice. And what I don't want is...
As I said, there is an option if you want to defer it, so we can get legal advice as to. It might even be that parts of the paper could be disclosed to the public, and that could be looked at again, if not all of it or not all of it. But that's the other option.
Because I can have the casting vote and take it away, but that won't solve it. But if we defer it, when does that mean it comes back? Not till June.
Well, but although it would be within your discretion if you want
to have an extraordinary meeting. Okay, so we can still pull an extraordinary meeting for this one. Would that be happy with everyone if we do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll do that.
Appreciate
Thank you for your input, Neil. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay.
So work programme.
Meeting is closed.
Oh,
sorry.
No.
Sorry, work programme. Obviously, this is our last one for January, so if we have to pull one, when can we pull an extraordinary CGS?
I would love to be able to tell you that right now, but I'm going to have to look at the calendar and circulate. I'll let you know tomorrow morning.
So we'll speak tomorrow. Okay. As long as everybody's happy with that, I think it's the right decision to make, because I did read it the same as you, Neil. So, and you know, I've fought many times to get where we are now. I don't want to go backwards with all this. Thank you everybody. Thank you. Sorry, did you still want to speak?
No, thank you, Chair.
Sorry,
I stand by any decision that you decide as the Scrutiny Committee. That's perfectly fine for whatever you wish to do. I will go away and I'll work with everybody to ensure that we can get the paper here before you again as soon as practicable, really, because my only comment is the review was on the value for money of the contract. Yes. If I was in post, I probably would have advised that the year to assess value for money is not the last year of a contract, but possibly the first. And therefore, the longer this goes on, the less of it, in effect, importance it will have, because the amount of time that we have the ability to change anything is reduced.
I mean, actually, everybody's got their views on it because they've all read it, so we've got our views. They might differ in some respects, but I think they'd probably be on the same page in a way. So,
we want police.
Thank you for that, Mark. I'm sorry you've had to wait this long to not debate.
Not a problem,
thank
Chair.
you, Neil.
My
Much
job.
appreciated.
Can I just add?
Yes. Don't worry, I will.
Can I have just one little add-on about the lady said about visits, and for that is so valuable. I think we should.
We'll follow that up with Rhiannon. Yeah, we'll do. Okay, thank you, everybody. Meeting ends at. Trying to look at your times. 20:54. Okay.